the movement of the city, and we want to make sure that we send a very clear and loud message. As the deputy mayor stated, New York City is always ready. We know that this is a city where our NYPD and other law enforcement entities must be prepared at any given moment for anything to happen in this city. To start, I want to make it clear, the commissioner has stated over and over again, there has been no specific credible threats to our city at this time. And all New Yorkers should go on with their regular activities. That means going to work, going to school. We're going to do our job as we always do. If you usually drive, we're stated, take public transportation. It is easy to get around on public transportation because we expect some disruptions and additional traffic. There's a great deal of additional traffic that may come in the city, and there will be street closures near the courts and throughout the city. While there may be some rabble-rousers thinking about coming to our city tomorrow, our message is clear and simple. Control yourselves. New York City is our home, not a playground for your misplaced anger. We are the safest large city in America because we respect the rule of law in New York City. And although we have no specific threats, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is known to spread misinformation and hate speech, she stated she's coming to town. While you're in town, be on your best behavior. As always, we will not allow violence or vandalism of any kind, and if one is caught participating in any act of violence, they will be arrested and held accountable, no matter who you are. And I want to, again, thank the police department, the commissioner, for their response and for the necessary preparation as we deal with this major historical potential event that will take place in the city. At this time, I'd like to introduce the police commissioner of the city of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. As always, the NYPD is prepared to ensure that everyone is able to have their voices heard peacefully while exercising their First Amendment rights. We do this work in close collaboration with our federal, state, and local partners because keeping our city safe is absolutely a collective effort. As the mayor stated, there are no credible or specific threats to New York City at this time. New Yorkers may see an increased police presence in parts of the city and should anticipate intermittent road closures over the next 2 days, particularly in Manhattan. To avoid delays, I too urge everyone to use mass transit when possible. As I said, our job is to facilitate and safeguard the rights of people to express themselves and those going about their daily activities. But I will remind everyone that violence and destruction are not part of legitimate, lawful expression, and it will never be tolerated in our city. The people we serve know this, just as they know that the NYPD will be out there today, tomorrow, and every day to make sure that they are safe. Thank you. Mr. Mayor? Sure. Well, we'll take some questions.
Commissioner, has Marjorie Taylor Greene or anyone else for that matter sought a permit, and has anyone been granted?
So the permitting is actually done through City Hall, but I will say that anyone who protests is expected to express themselves peacefully and orderly.
Was there an arrest or has there been an arrest in the powder incident involving the arraigned office?
That incident is still under investigation at this time.
Commissioner or Mr. Mayor, have you noticed any movements at Port Authority or at the airport? Any influx of people that are coming in that you've noticed that are coming here for this event? Any estimate on that, or have you not seen it?
We value our relationship with our partners, and we're in constant communication with them. So if they do see an influx of people or something out of the ordinary, they will contact us. At this time, we don't see that happening, but we will have real-time information if that does occur.
Does anyone have specifics? I don't know if this is a question for you, Commissioner, or the Mayor, about where it's, I know you said intermittent road closures, but can we expect at a certain point how many blocks around the courthouse would be closed? Was the FDR driver, any of the highway when there's movement? I mean, will that information be shared with the public?
So there are going to be rolling road closures. I'm sure you can understand based on the sensitivity of it. It's going to be moving, but we will make sure we have enough officers to facilitate transport throughout the city. There is one area close to Trump Tower that will have a road that is closed just to facilitate his transport. But beyond that, there'll be rolling road closures intermittently through the city. We're trying to have minimal amount of intrusion into city life.
I wanted to ask, what additional measures is the NYPD taking, not only to protect DA Bragg, but also other members of his office?
We take any threats or concerns of our elected officials and anyone in the city very seriously. So we have provided some assistance in that regard, and we are investigating any threats that may be made to the DA or any of his staff.
Will the Times Square gun-free zone be moved in and around courthouses?
As you know, a number of laws were passed when we went into having sensitive zones and restricted zones. It's actually an e-felony to carry in some of those zones, even if you have a license. Some of those zones include courthouses, federal buildings, and First Amendment activities. So we're not going to move those. I think responsible gun ownership requires that you know what the laws are, where you are protesting, and we expect everyone to adhere to ours.
Well, going back to police presence, how many officers do you expect to be on the streets? And also, the Secret Service, I mean, how have they come in and basically told you what to do? Or, I mean, how much control are they having over security?
We work with the Secret Service all the time. These are our partners. I won't go into how many numbers of police officers will be on the street, but we will have enough to facilitate mobile units if we need to respond to anything. But this is a collaborative effort with our partners in the Secret Service.
You have been listening to Mayor Eric Adams and Police Commissioner Key Chant-Sewell discuss the security measures that the city of New York is taking ahead of former President Trump's arraignment tomorrow.
Yeah, Mayor Adams said that there's no specific threats to the city, but that he won't allow any violence, saying New York City is our home, not a playground for your misplaced anger. He also called out Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene for spreading misinformation, and he told protesters to, quote, be on your best behavior.
He also said, control yourselves.
Control yourselves.
Rebel rousers.
Well, joining us now is CBS News consultant Richard Esposito. He's also a former deputy commissioner of the New York City Police Department. Richard, good to have you with us. So Trump was indicted several days ago, and despite his calls for protest, we really haven't seen any widespread unrest here in the city. But we heard how the NYPD is preparing for those, quote, rabble rousers. What can you tell us about how preparations are done?
You know, preparations are done very extensively and very carefully, not just with the police department, with all the partners involved, Secret Service, the court officers, the U.S. Marshals, the FBI, of course. And it involves everything from hundreds of intelligence analysts looking over online threats, running them down to see whether there's any credibility. It involves reviewing potential travel of persons who might be interested in causing violence. And as you heard in the press conference, right now, the police department and the partners, they're not seeing any threat to the city. They have made clear that they are responding to potential threats to the district attorney, however. We've seen those in the mail last week.
Right. I mean, those have been certainly taken seriously. We also, I mean, I was just monitoring some of those social media and other channels, and certainly there are a lot of threats. And people just, maybe not a lot, but some threats. And perhaps people are thinking that this is just something I say online, I'm not going to act upon. I travel in the subway, and, you know, I was thinking about it throughout the week and last week and throughout the weekend. And I talked to some people, and they said, you know, I am concerned. I'm concerned about safety. We heard that, you know, there's a suggestion for people to take public transportation as opposed to cars because there's going to be road closures. But what do you know about the areas that are where the city police and people are going to be most concentrated in? How do they go about deciding where to, you know, keep more officers?
So they, as you know, they have a lot of practice with presidential motorcades, particularly during the Trump administration. There's permanent security at Trump Tower. So they have some very solid places where we know they're going to be. We know there's going to be extensive security at Trump Tower, on Fifth Avenue, You would expect some road closures there because they'll lock it down while the president's rolling through. They'll then reopen it. These rolling closures are what the police department does when there's a motorcade moving to try and minimize the inconvenience to traffic. And then down by the court complex on Center Street in Manhattan, they will be full street closures. There will be no traffic allowed in to certain streets to both protect former President Trump, to provide media access, to give protesters an area to protest. They are expecting peaceful protest. The mayor sent a clear warning on how even hate speech has to be within bounds. And I think those are two areas where you're going to see closures. What you're not going to see is there will be substantial mobile deployments ready to go. The police department will have assets on the ready, on the streets, which can be moved rapidly from one area to another. And those will be substantial.
Yeah, well, every officer was told to show up in uniform, even starting last week, and be ready to deploy. Richard Esposito, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, we'll have the latest updates on an American journalist being held in Russia. We have the response from his company as he makes an appearance in court today.
And Finland is officially joining NATO after the final member nation came around. Another country is still forced to wait. We have a lot of news ahead. We're going to be covering all of it for you, so stick with us. You're streaming CBS News.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and